Hello, I'm Tanya Sharp. Welcome to this presentation of our series on Individual Education Program, IEP, Consideration of Special Factors, ensuring all pieces of the puzzle connect. In this presentation, we will discuss the English Learner Needs Special Factor the Admissions and Release Committee, or ARC, is required to consider, which is, does the child have limited English proficiency? For a student who is an English learner, or EL, the ARC considers the language needs described in the student's English Learner Program Services Plans, or ELPSP, as related to the student's disability. The ARC considers the student's level of English language proficiency, including conversational skills and academic language proficiency. In Kentucky, a student's ELP is measured annually using the ACCESS Access or Alternate Access Test. The ARC must consider the student's level of English language proficiency in listening, speaking, reading, and writing to support and reinforce the implementation of the IEP. The ARC must discuss and document its analysis of the student's ELP as it relates to the student's disability. This applies to students under any category of disability. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, Part B, Federal Registrar from 2006 emphasizes that Section 300.306, subsections B1 III, consistent with Section 614, subsection B5C of the Act, clearly states that limited English proficiency cannot be the basis for determining a child to be a child with a disability under any of the disability categories in Section 300.8. From this regulation, when we develop an IEP, the ARC must answer the second consideration of special factors for IEP development. The ARC must answer, does the child have limited English proficiency? If the present levels of academic achievement and functional performance, or present levels, indicate needs or adverse impact, then this should be marked yes. If yes, the ARC must consider what are the language needs relating to their disability. What are the language needs that need to be considered in order for the IEP to be implemented and for the student to make progress? In addition to the things the ARC typically considers when supporting an English learner student with a disability, it's also things like, does the parent need an interpreter or translator to participate in support? Is the student's first language one that may impact their ability to meet certain speech goals? If the ARC marks yes to English learner needs, then the ARC must address the need for a particular device or service section of the special factors as well. For more information, see video 8 on the need for a particular device or service. These guiding questions are to assist the ARC in determining if the child has limited English proficiency and what their language needs are. If there are English language needs, then the ARC may use these questions and the additional questions available in the Guidance for IEP Development document to consider the specific needs, supports, services, and any other factors. An IEP for a student who is an English learner identifies the student's unique cultural, linguistic, and home language needs and how those needs are related to the IEP. The following questions may guide the ARC when making special considerations to determine the student's needs regarding EL. What is the relationship of language needs to the IEP? As mentioned on the previous slide, this means what are the language needs relating to their disability, and what are the language needs that need to be considered in order for the IEP to be implemented and for the student to make progress? What language will be used for the student's instruction? How can the IEP ensure meaningful access to the general education curriculum, through alternative language services and special education services? And how can the IEP provide cultural relevance in the curricular framework? Some other guiding questions include what language or languages or mode or modes of communication will be used to effectively communicate with and involve the student's parents and family? How do resources of the school need to be configured to support the student's first and second language needs? What accommodations might be needed for instruction and testing? Is there a member of the ARC who has expertise regarding the student and understands how language develops, as well as the strategies that can be used when educating a student with English as a second language? If the ARC has determined English learner needs and has documented the strategies and supports needed, the ARC would then need to ensure the needs, strategies, and supports are connected throughout the IEP. So now let's discuss some of the ways the ARCs should ensure the IEP is comprehensive, consistent, and compliant. To make those connections, English language needs should be integrated and documented throughout the IEP as part of planning for the student. In order to make those connections throughout the IEP, the ARC will need to ensure the needs or concerns described in present levels align with and support the information included in the special factors section, which would include the student's current level of English language proficiency, or ELP, the student's level of linguistic development and proficiency impact how the team will develop and select measurable goals that are appropriate for the student. The IEP should include appropriate accommodations that may be needed for classroom and state assessments, such as documents translated, a translator, or possibly a reader and scribe. If EL is a factor, have communication needs and related services been addressed? Now, these are just some of the ways ARCs should ensure the IEP is comprehensive, consistent, and compliant. Now let's look at an example of how those pieces connect. Here's an example of some of the connections. If the ARC documents in the present levels that the student has English learner needs, then the English learner needs section of the special factors should be marked yes, and the language needs that need to be considered in order for the IEP to be implemented and for the student to make progress should be documented throughout the IEP. Now, let's look at a few pieces of the IEP that the ARC would make connections to. This is not a complete list of all the connections that will need to be made, but only a few examples. What tools can students use to support accessing core instruction in their primary language, if appropriate, such as preview, review directions in primary language, translation, oral interpretation, websites, and etc.? The present level should include current data from the Access for ELs. The ARC should address strengths, needs, and concerns in both English and native home language, as they may differ and require goals in both languages. The annual goals should be consistent with grade level and which specific language used. If the goal includes assistive technology, such as illustrated text using phrase banks, then the ARC should ensure it is consistent with the special factors section. The provision of translation or interpretation services should be consistent and clearly communicated throughout the plan. Again, these are just a few examples of how those connections will be made to ensure the IEP is compliant, comprehensive, and consistent throughout. The present levels are the baseline to the student's strengths and needs. They are the beginning foundations for the ARC to build the IEP. As the ARC builds that IEP, the information and data provided in the present levels are going to connect and help the ARC to develop an appropriate IEP that includes all the pieces that connect in order for there to be progress documented and seen through the data. This puzzle piece graphic on the screen is an outline of a child's head with puzzle pieces in it. It does not depict every detailed piece of the IEP, but it's meant for you to visualize how all the pieces of the IEP will make up an individualized and appropriate program for students. The IEP should be compliant, comprehensive, and consistent throughout, which includes the special factors. Remember, if the ARC marks any of the special factors yes, such as English learner needs, it should be addressed throughout the entire IEP. If the ARC marks English learner no in the special factors, then before the ARC marks technology, such as text-to-speech and native language and accommodations, or it includes native language in a goal, think about how that is inconsistent if being monitored. Those indicate the student does have English language needs and are used to ensure a student is able to access the general curriculum. In order to ensure our puzzle pieces all fit together, we need to think through all the services and items the student will need to access in order to be successful within their school-wide environment. Using all pieces of data and information, a complete, compliant, and comprehensive IEP appropriate for the student can be developed by the ARC annually. Here are a few additional resources that may assist in learning more about the process and requirements related to the consideration of special factors, specifically English learner needs and IEP development. Thank you for watching the IEP Consideration of Special Factors, English Learner Needs. The other parts in the series clarify how each section of the special factors in the IEP connect together to create a comprehensive, consistent, compliant, and effective program ensuring student growth. Specifically, we will look at regulatory requirements for each factor, along with guiding questions for the ARC in considering each factor, and how to ensure if the ARC marks any of the special factors yes, then those factors should be addressed throughout the entire IEP. If you have any questions regarding this series, please contact staff in the Division of IDEA Monitoring and Results at 502-564-4970.